Happy, 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 happy. We are live. Yay. Okay. Let me see. Yay. Yay. What else? Yay. Okay. Does this do what I think it does? Okay, there. I just sent out the greetings. Sounds like crazy people wanting to drive me crazy. And there it is. Okay. No one's here. It's about 1 minute. So we'll talk this bullshit. Maybe people will see it. Hi there. Me again, Cliffy. Shaved. Maybe was I shaved last week? I don't remember. I was kind of sick. I was kind of getting sick. I was like down with the allergies this week. It was really bad. Monday was a complete disaster day for me. I got a lot of work done. I got stuff things. We have so it was. I was kind of down in that sense. It was like So Tuesday, I was in bed with this sinus headache, sinus migraines. That I did some work on. I did very little work on the computer. I didn't come to my office. I stayed at my laptop. Checked a couple of things out. Did a couple stuff with my Norwich students. Which are, I had 7. One disappeared. Second one had technical problems, and the regulations required them to be withdrawn because they didn't participate for 2 weeks. So it's like, going to Asia. If you're going to be transferred to Asia, it doesn't help. You better make sure you have internet. And military bases, the internet is now getting worse and worse and worse, I'm being told. This is how the Biden administration, the Biden-Harris things, think about such things. Service contracts and things like this have been, cut, and they don't care about service people. So, they care more about woke and transgender, making sure you transition and having enough people of transgender identity in leadership positions. Yes, but making sure you have good working Wi-Fi for your personnel. No, that doesn't. No. That's the silliness of it. It was like hearing the stories about things. So my Norwich students are doing like this. We're doing realism distant right now. We're doing about the birth of the rise of the Westphalian system and things like that. We're at my university. I finished my I finished my writing up my lectures for the Introduction to American Law. It's like 400 pages. My God, it's like huge. They're still not perfect. They're good. I'm gonna use them. I'm gonna play test them when I do it. I'm gonna print up my copy so I can read my lecture. Just kind of read the lecture off as I teach the class. I'm gonna maybe edit it, maybe submit it to publish it myself for students to have in the future, or someone to teach this course if they want to have it as a kind of a guide. I have to generate questions, so that's going to be I'm going to make quizzes and things for them. So I'm going to have to do some work about that next couple of days. I'm going to be disappearing for a couple of days with my wife because my wife has to go to her mother for to help her for like a couple of days, and that means we're going to go down there on a 4-day trip. So it's like, so well, that's going to be that. 4 or 5 day trip to come back on Thursday afternoon. Friday, I'll be here, thank God. But at the same time, next Friday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I have to be available because we're doing master's acceptance. And it was we had 17 students. We accepted about 10. We added 2 more that were questionable. The 2 that were added were kind of political theses. So that kind of balanced the kind of between the transgender, the what I consider, the gender stuff, the video culture stuff, the minorities stuff, and the woke kind of silly stuff versus what we typically get at my center. Ooh, well, that's it. That's so it's kind of like that. We'll have the thing. I was a colleague who I thought was going to be much more woke. Um, um, was going to be much more woke, much more progressive left, turned out not to be, which I was surprised by. He was tougher on people. Um, oh, my wife is here, so she hopes she doesn't come in here. Like, she's taking the electrical for something. Ooh. Well, it's just one of those weird things. My wife's probably doing some outside work, grass stuff, and probably needs the power. Ooh, okay, so you might see her pop in and back. Um, so that was this stuff. I got a lot of administrative stuff. I have I have exams coming at the 23rd, 24th. I'll be for my exams. I have a doctor visit on Monday, the 23rd, and then 24th, 25th. There'll be um, BA exams. I have 2 thesis students, 2 BA theses that I'm supervised, and I'm going to be reviewing at least 1 more. I was surprised that a colleague did not ask me to review the thesis. I don't know why he didn't ask me to review the thesis, but okay. And starting tomorrow in the online, not for you guys, but this online group I belong to of academics. We're doing the Greek plays, Shakespeare's Greek comedies, or Greek plays, the 5 Greek plays, which I got my copies of the. I decided to. I have Shakespeare like a couple of the Ardent and some of those, and the Oxford, Complete Oxford, and things like this. But I got these because these are the ones we're going to be using. So these are Signet classics, and people like Signet. A lot of this old generation like Signet, and I don't understand why. We're doing Midsummer's Night Dream, Tarsus and Cressida, Timon of Athens, and then Pericles, Prince of Tyr, and the Comedy of Errors. And we're going to be looking at that, spending up till the end of the year on those, which is so funny because if Shakespeare's Roman plays are all tragedies, the Greek plays tend to be, I think, all but one. I think Trolla and Cressida is a tragedy. All but Cressida are comedies. So it's interesting that that it's about love, more about love. The Greek city is tied with Eros. That's interesting. Eros, all about Eros, all about desire. So that's what I'll be doing with my Saturdays, other than writing. I told you my writing projects. Last week I talked about that. I told you about what I'm going to do with Aristotle, the Aristotle project I have. I just published two things. I just put listing in the notes there. I got a piece published at the Miskatonian. I can never say his name, Miskatonian. I know the guys, and they were like, and I helped. I was one of the first articles that they published on my one of my Aristotle's varieties. Politeia was one of a version of the talk I gave about Aristotle that they published it for public thing. And okay, good. Then I did my Yeats book, something I wrote 30 years ago in a graduate course on Yeats and Burke. Okay, I think it was on revolution. Okay, on reflections on revolution, comparing Burke's reflections on the French Revolution to Yeats' reflection on the Irish Revolution, in his poem on the Irish Revolution and Civil War, and then compare Yeats to Burke in that sense. And it was a good paper. I thought it was a very good paper at the time, and I think it still is. So we did it there. Then I did my thing on sports with him, and now I just did my comparison of Lefort and Manent on the political form. So it's like, okay. And then at VoegelinView, I did my take on Jaffa and the Straussians' use of natural right, and compared to that of the tradition, critique from the kind of what I call traditional conservatives, the tradcons of old paleocon, tradcon types, and their problem with it. And their kind of miscommunication of the thing. So those are the two articles I just got published. I have another piece on Benetton that's I asked Voegelin to look at, but I haven't heard from Krauss, the editor, so I don't know what's going on. Maybe he doesn't want me. I published you. I don't want to publish you again for a while. And I have a couple other pieces. I have a thing on Schmidt on the political forum I'm working on just quickly. Schmidt on the political forum is very interesting because the term political forum emerges from Schmidt in his 1919 book, I think 1919, 1921 book, The Roman Catholicism as a Political Forum, right? And political form, the concept, it plays a very central role in his constitutional law book, his constitutional theory, which German was Versana, his basically his Stadtler, his classic thing on state theory and the German constitutional state constitution in that sense, the constitutional law. State theory. I think that is I think that will be a good, interesting point. I'm doing this. I did Lefort, my comparison Lefort, and I'm going to probably even do the Schmidt thing to frame my paper. I'm looking at that. I'm thinking about submitting. It's about 20 pages now. I have to work on it, edit some more. I plan to submit it by October, end of October, to a Polish journal, to Runner Points. I think that's going to be a very interesting piece to submit because it's about the political form and the social form and the connection. The political form, my argument is that the two classic political form, first of all, I have to define what the political form is. The political form is the organizational body, the thing that makes, that shapes political things. It is the institution structures and organizational structure that is this. And that the classical conception of the political form was the polis. We can argue what happened was that the polis basically got marginalized with the rise of Macedon and Alexander and in Rome. Okay, that what happened was that the political form of the city, the polis, got marginalized, and an empire took its place. But empire before was not political; it was hegemonic. So something happened to make that allowed, particularly, in other words, to be honest with you, Macedon was hegemonic. In other words, it's the primacy of hegemonic rule. Rome becomes the thing where empire becomes political. It rules politically, not so much hegemonically. And this is the this raises the question. This is the fact, by the way. This is the point about Voegelin and his critique on Strauss, about Strauss's book on tyranny, that he kind of worked with Kojève on the first draft, the book of the first edition that Voegelin reviewed in the Review of Politics, and was making the point that classic, that Caesar was not a tyrant in this tradition, because Caesar was what Caesar signified as post-constitutional rule or post-political rule. In other words, the rise of Caesar is the indication of the end of constitutional rule of the republic, right? So, so therefore, the idea is that the classic thing is done. I don't know what to do with it. I'm going to send it out. I would like to get it looked at by someone, to publish it or something. I have sent it, and everyone loved it so far. My lecture on the rise of the polis as the classical political form. It's about 20 something, 24 pages, single space. So it's not that, a double space, so probably about 40. So it's about 20 pages. And I'm thinking of, this is what I might this is one of the other books that I might do. I always wanted the book on political form, or the form of the political, and therefore have a book on defining what the political form is. Take maybe some of my stuff on Schmidt and the Manent thing, and then add my definition to it, towards also define the concept, show the birth of the political, the polis, the example of the polis, the political versus the other forms. Then deal with the medieval breakdown of the political form. The plurality of bodies, political bodies, and then the emergence of the state, and then the challenge to the state of the globalism. That would be the kind of the political form idea for a book, a little teeny thing. And then I also would like to do forms of rule. That's the other thing, forms of rule. That's the other thing. I want to do my two books, those two little books. But I want to do forms of rule. That is something I need to do with. I need to do that with my friend Trevor Shelley at Arizona, because we wrote that first piece about the rise of the political as a political role, political form, against the household, against the private economic, against the despotic, and one of the things that we need to do is look at care, look at love, look at the concept of care, agape or storge, depending on how, two definitions of love, affection. If domination or despotic, mastery is one type of rule where it's coercion, right? The other one is the other extreme is love, which is not political in that sense. That political emerges love, and then as economic, just interest. Okay, utility, coercion, affection, and then add deception. And deception is our forms of deceptive, of coercion, and it's a form of coercion. It's a form of force, but it's deception and fraud is a form of coercive rule, but it's deceptively coercive in that sense. So therefore, that's an it's a variety. So that's 4 varieties of that's coming up with 4 varieties of the 4 dimensions of rule: love or affection, utility, coercion, and a deception. Persuasion is connected with this. Persuasion and deception are mechanisms, right? Persuasion and coercion, persuasion, that is kind of mechanisms. Love, utility, and I don't know what the other one is. Is it fear? Is it dominate? Okay, can't talk. Someone tried to call. I can't talk. Oh, hold on. Let me just answer. Okay, that was a waste of time. That was a simple, just a Polish crank caller. No, the crank caller, but what is the word I'm looking for? Sales call, robocall, or even though it's a person doing it. It's like telemarketing. Oh, marketing. Oh God. So that's the nature of what the kind of projects are working. So we're doing those kind of things. The political form I say I'm working on, the idea of the connection of the political. One of the essays I'm writing, that right now I'm writing, and that is I'm focusing on the question of the connection between what we call the political and the social. That is the political form, which we had talked about, the idea of the political organization, and the 2 varieties: the polis or city, the city as the ancient or classical political form, and the state as the modern political form. Right? These 2 of the political form, and I want to connect I'm going to argue that there's an interconnection between. There is at one level an assumed interconnection at one level. I think this is this is an error. I think this is the error. I think that to assume that, in other words, there's at the social level, there's 2. In other words, there's 2 the primacy of one or the other determines on or whether we're privileging if we're privileging happiness over utility. Okay. If you privilege happiness over utility or fulfillment, human fulfillment, then the political focus the political form should be the classical polis. But if you focus on utility, if the focus is on utility and maximization of utility, then the focus has to be the state. You choose the state. And I think this is the insight in that sense. This is the massive insight that if you take, and if someone's watching this, clip this for me. Please, someone clip. If anyone who does this, who watched this, Mr. Greenglass, clip the section for me and send it to me. because I might do a transcript of it. But again, starting here, let me just start. Starting here, that there's this interconnection between the political form and the social form. That the political form, the modern idea is the city is the ancient world and the state is the modern world, right? These two political entities are there. And the assumption is that the social organizations, that is between communitas and societas. I've talked about this before, that communitas is this idea of the focus of communities are localized, it's natural. This is the Antonis talks of, in German is Gemeinschaft, Gesellschaft, right? That Gemeinschaft or community or communitas in Latin is organic. It's out of our lived experience together. It's our lived through our families, our kinships, and our interrelations, and that these are the intimate relations that deals with whether us that how we focus it. Now, the classic argument was that the idea of koinonia in the Greek was kind of, in many ways, koinonia is at one level. See, this is the problem. I was for a long time thinking koinonia fits perfectly communitas and fits perfectly Gemeinschaft. But I'm thinking no, because for Aristotle, a genos is a kind of type of koinonia. It's not that strong of a koinonia. In other words, he will say that, in other words, his point is that what is a koinonia? There's a range. At the most intimate and immediate is the pair bond, either husband, wife, parent, child, or friend. Those are the kind of intimate, immediate. Two friends who share a life together. That's okay. But we would say, oh, that's the husband wife. But it can be two men. Oh, but gay, that's homosexuality. Oh, no, or two women. What? I'm not going to argue that. That's not important. There can be this is my point. My sister always joked about this. She used to complain that, why did they have to make Xena and her friend and Xena Warrior Prince gay at the end? There's nothing wrong. You can have two people who are friendly and intimate like that, but are not having sex with each other. They can love each other without having sex, and that's true. This is the problem. We modern people automatically associate love of people with sex. So therefore, the idea that you have this feeling of affection and love and bond as sexual. And I think this is, yes, it can be, because that there is something about the husband and wife relationship that is sexual, but it also can be, in other words, it can be a form of friendship too, and that the friendship is a life together, shared life together, and that koinonia in that sense is like this. And then there's the household. Then there is the manifestation of the partner, the intimate partner, then the household, which frames those relationships, the oikos, and then there is the village, which is an association of households, and then the polis becomes this manifestation moment. And then what happens? The tribe or nation or people, and then the people large, and then humanity, right? So the genos, the race, and then all humanity. So, okay, you have these different things. What Aristotle argues is that what is in this range of koinonia, because remember, he's talking about this koinonia as this range. All these are forms of koinonia for Aristotle. And what he wants to do here is argue that where is the point? Where is that sweet spot which allows us to achieve human flourishing, eudaimonia, right? Happiness, eudaimonia. Where is that? And he says it's the polis. The polis allows human beings to fulfill their nature as human beings and therefore achieve eudaimonia. Okay, that is the argument. And thus, even though I will continue translating koinonia as community, because koinonia comes from common, right? The common, it is. I prefer community to society because society is much broader. It's more. So you can translate. This is the problem: is some people translate it as society. Some people, because you can make the argument koinonia can be either of these two, communitas, community, or society. That is a thing. It's that because of the range of what is a community is what is a koinonia is a range from and very intimate. In other words, it's very intimate to very broad. There's still something common there. There is a common. There is something common. But what the strength of the common is there. The problem is the strength. It is super strong at the level of the pair. But though that relation is insufficient to live well in order to achieve eudaimonia. That's why the polis is that sweet spot. It is that mean point on the range of koinonia that it allows the greatest ability to achieve eudaimonia. And that is the insight that I think I've come up with in that sense. That therefore, so when the Greeks talk about this, the polis, so therefore you cannot really understand the polis as merely tied to the community. But we do, because once we historicize it and assume that, okay, we understand this as community, particularly if we look at the position of what someone Coulage in his ancient city, because Coulage turns the ancient world into this, and it's Coulage becomes the teacher. Remember, Coulage is the teacher of Durkheim. So Durkheim's a presentation of the difference between his mechanical solidarity, which is the organic society in that sense, and that was not organic society, or organic solidarity, which is it's really division of labor model. It is a Gesellschaft in that sense, right? It was more societas, and that's right. Gesellschaft is societas. Then we get this society, right? Remember the connection between where the word society emerges from of societas. I think this is the important perception here to understand, that this trajectory of this is that, therefore, at one level, it is misleading to understand society as this, because for Aristotle and the Greeks, we have to understand societas and Gemeinschaft, Gesellschaft, societas and Gesellschaft. These are interest-based, utility-based relationship, nothing more. It is rational. It's what Weber will say is a rational authority. It is resting on, Weber's conception of societal relationships are threefold, his threefold typology between customary, traditional, rational, legal, and then charismatic, right? Charismatic is the irrational, rational, but then community is not irrational. It's not rational either. It's not legal. It's what we've done in the past. It's custom. It's what we've done. It's what works. It's pragmatic in that sense, right? And thus, so Weber goes a complete different direction than Durkheim and Tönnies. Frederick Tönnies is, I want to say Frederick, but Tönnies distinction between Gemeinschaft, Gesellschaft, between community and society, communitas and societas, right? Really wants to show in these two different directions. That one is organic, one is tied to the immediateness of our life together. It's tied organic. Durkheim would say it's mechanical. It has sameness. Everyone is the same people. They're same things. You fit in your function. It's like, and I think this is a very important thing to think about because Collage wants to turn the, and this is the point. What ends up happening is it isn't Tonnes. Tonnes presents these two things, and there's the perception of one is before the other, like the one is prior to it, the evolutionary prior. It's not necessarily clear. Tonnes doesn't use that. It's later thinkers who do. This is something that Hayek in his Fatal Conceit kind of highlights about how in man we have our hunter-gatherer. It's our hunter-gatherer time. It's this community. And actually that's Marx, isn't it? That Marx's desire for that communism is a return to hunter-gatherer community, the hunter-gatherer, that longing for the past, that longing for that old community of our hunter-gatherer memory. That this Gemeinschaft is this longing for something past. And what we have evolved into something new, and this is better for us. It gives us more advantageous, and therefore we should overcome it. In other words, that's Hayek's kind of perception. And Hayek is echoing what Karl Popper, I bought this today, I came today. I've always had, I have copies of this. I've had my 2-volume original set. I didn't have the original Routledge, but I had the original Princeton edition. That's because in the U.S. you get Princeton, in Europe you get Routledge. I got the Routledge 1 volume because might as well have it 1 volume. And this is the deep devil. Popper and Hayek and Popper are cousins. Popper and Austrians. They're both Austrians. Popper is the guy who really, in his Open Society, the enemies of the Open Society, is making the argument, trying to defend modern society against what he calls Plato, this Hegel state worship and this idea of the closed society. And that Plato was one of the Plato and those who argue for the city, because if you look from the point of view of the Greek world doesn't have this distinction between state and society that our model does. Okay, that there's not this division between they have the private and public. And the public, that's the funny thing, that in Greek, the private person is the idiot, the idios, an idiot. That's where we get the word for idiot, right? Private person is kind of an idiot. And hence, this is the perception of what we have to confront with this, that the truly human, the truly lived life is a public life. Now, the philosopher is philosophy this an escape from the argument? What about the philosopher? Isn't the philosopher supposed to be, and isn't the philosopher going to go outside against the city? No, because the philosophy is the most public thing, you could argue. It is the most public thing. Now, it might not be compatible with any particular given regime that's imperfect, and therefore its dedication to the truth and seeking the truth and seeking the just may lead it into conflict, will lead it into conflict. But it's not an anti-political thing. This is the difference between, I think, this is why John Stuart Mill's argument about the Millian argument about Socrates and the On Liberty is just not. On Liberty gets it wrong for the wrong reason. On Liberty and the liberal view gets it wrong because it seeks to escape the public. And this is because they equate the public with the state. See, in other words, we would see the public and the private, the public and the private. That is the realm of the household, of the city, the public, the household, the city. The household is the public, private. Sorry, the private. The household, the realm of the household is the private. The realm of the city is the public. We think between the modern dichotomy is not public-private; it is state-society. But the problem with state and society is, and this is something I've talked about in my previous videos, the state and society are synonymous concepts. They occur at the same time. They emerge around the same time in intellectual history. The state kind of emerges first. No, but maybe even societas, understanding, maybe we can argue the view that society, that you can see this kind of in Cicero. In Cicero, looking at trying to fix the Roman Republic, starts arguing to address the socii and the larger network of Romans within the framework of this. That, in other words, we can't operate within the limit of the city anymore. We have to operate in a larger environment that's much bigger, and therefore this political form has to operate at the level of the network of socii, the social, at the level of the socii. That is the friend cities, all the cities that are aligned under that sworn loyalty to Rome and as under Roman protection and under Roman. And now one could argue that this was a form of alliance, right? This was the classic understanding in Greek of the treaty alliance structure, which I talk about, and I talk about the difference of that relationship is insufficiently enough to form a political community. It can be beneficial, can be utility based, and therefore the people traditionally the argument was that this was done for the sake of the dominant power. It was hegemonic in that regard, as despotic. That empire thus was always kind of despotic in its character, its kind of rule, and that if the subordinate entities benefited, it was accidental, because the purpose of them was for the benefit of the. And you can say that's true with Rome as well. So we can argue that the Roman model and any imperial structure was, by definition, hegemonic or despotic, and hegemonic by its nature is despotic, not political. And that in other words, that doesn't preclude that the subordinate entity is benefiting from the rule of the master, but that it's not designed for that. If it happens, it's accidental or incidental to it, because the main purpose is the benefit for the ruling part. Now, what happens when there's relationship is done for mutual benefit, like a confederacy or confederation? Well, then that's something else. Then that becomes political in that sense. So that merge. When does a hegemonic relationship becomes confederal, and then when can a subordinate in a hierarchical order move from being despotic to political? So, and this is the problem. And therefore, that's the construction. Now, so Popper and gang wants to argue that, oh God, this Plato and the Plato city, the ancient city, and those in Plato. Plato is a totalitarian. That's the argument of the first volume of Popper, and that the longing for community is this outmoded, and this is where Hayek gets that idea from, I suspect. Even though Hayek knew biology and was interested in biology and evolution, and therefore he thought this way. But that's also in Marx. So this is something that this is a historicism. This is also available in the argument, the famous, what's his name? Benjamin Constant's famous, the ancients of the liberty and the liberty of the moderns versus the ancients of liberties, arguing that the modern political life and the liberty that it seeks is completely different than the ancient of liberty. These are incompatible. This is repeated but that Constant's claim is explicitly repeated in Collage's introduction to his ancient city, which is everyone talks. Even Strauss likes it. But in many ways, the ancient city is, I don't understand, given Strauss's bugbear about historicism, why didn't he see the historicism implicitly in Coulage? It's there, it's obvious. And I'm always amazed at this point because it's from Coulage, and then we can see Coulage influence in Durkheim. Durkheim still isn't comfortable with it, but other students of his, and then the influence on the German thinkers, even though Coulage is an anti-German thinker. Coulage's book of the French monarchy is in France, is basically arguing very much counter Montesquieu. About Montesquieu's argument is the role of the German influence. It's the Tacitus's famous argument that the liberty of Europe comes from the German forests, right? Tacitus's dangerous idea, this book, I have up there, the most dangerous idea, right? About Tacitus' claim. This was very much advocated by Montesquieu and very much advocated by Lord Acton. Thus, to understand that there was a French monarchy, you understood it as a German construct. And what Coulage wants to do in his multi-volume history of the monarchy is argue against that, saying, yes, the Germans, but it's a French thing. We diverged in our trajectory. And in other words, it's a very interesting, he tries to counter the Germanic influence. And thus, Coulage's take on this ultimately hits a problem. Because I think this is I go back to Coulage's recount of the ancient city, is that it accepts this. And the Coulage's sociology, Durkheim is influenced by it, and it kind of shapes him to see the ancient city as kind of mechanical. And thus he gets the idea of mechanical solidarity, right, from that. And he sees the idea of modern society, and his argument is the division of labor and the origin of modern society, right, is the idea that modern society emerges out of the division of labor and the concept of mutual benefit. So therefore, this fits the hypothesis of Tonnes and others of Gemeinschaft versus Gesellschaft. Gemeinschaft is basically care-based, shared lives, shared experiences, kin-based, organic, whereas society is all utility-based, rational and utility-based. This is Weber likes to play in the middle. That's why he comes up with charisma, and he divides it differently than community society. And what it was in Weber that you'd see you see community as a smaller localized entity, and then you see society as the large entity. And you see that in Montesquieu. You see that little bit in Montesquieu, but he just throws the word society out at large. He doesn't. I have to pay attention more. I have to go back. But you see that definitely in Tocqueville, where he distinguishes between, but he doesn't talk about community. He focuses more about the townships, right? The townships and the towns, and then the nations and the larger society, right? He talks about society in larger, broader terms. In terms of the state and society as synonymous concepts, whereas the villages and the towns, not the towns, but townships. This is the ancient. In fact, this is that famous line in Tocqueville that the towns are ancient while the states are modern, right? Therefore, this is why the American experience is this way, that there is something still ancient in this, and that the townships are reflections of the Gemeinschaft. This is where Gemeinschaft operates. And thus, when Gemeinschaft is lost, or community is lost, utterly destroyed, and only left at where there's only Gesellschaft or society. This is why both Tocqueville and Durkheim warns that one of the byproducts of mass society or society, large society, is individualism, right? Where it's like where the individual by himself, isolated by himself, ultimately feels powerless and isolated and alone. And this is a danger. This will lead to the destruction of civic life. Durkheim, it's atomy. The single isolated isolation, and atomy can lead to isolation that leads to to suicide, to despair, and things like that. So this is that important perception here in this moment in 19th, as we move from the end of 19th century, 20th century, in sociology and things like this. So therefore, back to the paper about this, that I'm looking at this and I see, okay, at one level we see this connection. There is a assumed the history, the historicist modern understanding is that the polis is to the community and the society is the state. And therefore, the historicist, since the community is primitive as the city, that this is prior to, this is, and that this is outdated. In other words, this is outdated. This is the proper argument is that, and Hayek too, that the modern rational structure of state and society supersedes and the longing for that the old the longing for the communitas and the longing for that is, this is dangerous. This leads to, and that those who wish to act politically end up destroying the structures of utility. So therefore, this is the idea, the open society, that the nature of this, the nature of effective capitalism is you don't care about people's race or anything. It's utility. What can I get from you? I don't care. If you're black, I don't care. If you can make the thing cheaper than that guy, I'm going to hire you. But the problem with the division of labor consumption, this is the Marxist criticism is right. If you understand this, then what happens to the person who's no longer useful or finds no exchange valuable in the system, that his labor is no longer valuable and is unable to market his labor and therefore falls out. And there is this connection in Tocqueville of the warning about individualization. This is Durkheim's atomy. This is Tocqueville's individualism, and this is Marx's alienation. And these are connected in this sense, and there is this element of this, and we see this we see this in mass society. We look at this. This is why Marxists. There is a claim. The problem with the Marxist is the Marxist doesn't understand that you cannot have the goods of mass society without. You cannot have the goods of capitalism and the goods of these things and like this. That yes, there is this benefit. We get a benefit, but there's a cost. The cost of this. And the solution would be a confederated system. In other words, don't destroy, don't let the larger society or the economic system completely destroy the Gemeinschaft. Allow Gemeinschafts to occur, associations, communities, allow them to flourish and do it this way. And in other words, let both happen. And let the sphere of them be corrected. Therefore, political life needs to be localized in a sense, and much more care. In other words, why should we have national education policy? No, this should be, but the reason why we need national this and national this is because some places still can't afford it, and therefore the government should mandate it and make it. In other words, then you get one-size-fits-all systems. And that becomes oppressive. This is the nature of this. The logic of the state is this homogeneity. And that because the state and society are totally interconnected, They're the same moment. They're the same. They're both created. They're like Siamese twins. They're Siamese twins that are given birth at the same moment and are born at the exact same time. And they're so interpenetrated with one another. Even though they try to have a sphere of difference, that sphere of difference is not sufficient enough to separate it in that sense. And that is the ancient modern distinction in that sense, that the older idea of koinonia in that sense, the idea of koinonia, and that the idea that the perfectus, and this is the word, everyone misunderstands the Latin. They say Aquinas talks about the perfectus communitas. The city is the perfectus communitas. Oh, the city is the ideal community, ideal political entity, right? Ideal, perfect, right? Perfectus does not mean that; it means complete. It is like from the Greek. It's that koinonia that is completes our ability to achieve eudaimonia. What is the live well, to live beautifully. Okay. Now we may think living well may require goods and services and things like that. It does to some degree, but at what its cost? In other words, those goods and services then are, if we're isolated and alone, those goods and services only occur because that we need what? We need communities, we need family, church, structures like this that are intact and that have and communities and friends that allow us to have the stability that when things don't work, we're marginalized here, we have someplace to go. If we don't, we have nothing and we fall. Well, but Marxist solution to this is revolution, right? That the workers and they fall apart and they collapse. See, they argue that family, friend, church are all a tool of the capitalist elite. It's a fraud. It's a deception. No, that is the ancient. This is the ancient natural order of that. In other words, the irony here is that the Marxist vision, while it longs for community, it understands it as society. It understands it only as individuals, but the individual, in other words, it is the individual is collectivized. And therefore, this is the false community. This is the fault. This is what the danger is with the Marxist perception of the longing for that is it is a false understanding. Yes, in other words, it is like all many false and evil things, they touch on the truth. Okay. False and evil, an odious thing. Sometimes, as I say, the devil speaks the truth occasionally when it suits his purpose. And we then therefore should not say, because the devil said it, we can't listen to it. If it's the truth, it's the truth. I have been watching through some of your readings of the Prince Strength. Thank you, Gaius Wilson. I had a letter to. So I mean, these are some of the thoughts I've been working on. So I think this is the problem. I'm trying. What I'm going to be doing in the paper is kind of talk about this connection and make the argument that the dominant view is to view it this way, and this is a historical error. And that therefore this structure, this is a historic error in that thing. So that's why I'm going to ask if someone out there can take this video and do a transcription of it on an AI and mail it to me. You can always DM me on Twitter and saying, I have it. Yes, it's ready. I can send it to you. And I'll send you by DM my email. Or you can find my email. I'm a public person. You can find my university email. So send it to me then. or transfer me by some mechanism if it's too big, or you wanted to send, if you can just send it. It would be kind of fun to do it, see what this video was, and then have take the transcription and then save me some work. Trying to remember what I said here and write it up, right? Well, it's an hour. We're at our end. I want to talk about Corliss's, who finally wrote. He's been on vacation, and Corliss, one of our viewers, faithful viewers, he was kind of going. He says he congratulated me on reeling our 500 subscriber. We're 500. I think we're currently at 504. He was on holiday traveling in northern England, so and the effects of looking at the effect of post-Brexit migration policies on the quite visible and dislikely contribute to me finding David Starkey's video on the death of conservative interesting. So that's conservative England. David Starkey just recently said about his video. I was actually corresponding with Starkey. I sent Starkey my piece that I'm working on, criticizing Scruton as being a Hegelian idealist. And I'm going to work on it a little more and hope maybe to send it someplace. I sent it to my friend, a guy, Ben, on my Facebook friend with him. He lives in Poland, but he works for a British magazine, conservative magazine. And I sent it to him to see what he thinks of it, and he'll get back to me. I think he won't, because they all love Scruton. Because he's recently at Budapest, and as anything with Budapest, is usually pro-Scruton. Like Poles are very pro-Scruton. I've been having fights with Scrutonites because I've always found Scruton to be useless, basically Hegelian, that misunderstands both the nation and misunderstands the nature of politics in that sense. It's too cultural. They used to just call me, "Oh, you're a libertarian." I go, "No, I'm not. Yeah, I see the limits of libertarianism also." But so he goes. The video reminded me of something Michel Gauchet wrote about the demise of traditional monarchism in France in the 1880s, 1890s. The plausibility of royal traditionalism depends on the preservation of sufficiently vigorous signs of the survival of the old form of society to make the possibility of living in it, sharing its spirit, seem plausible enough. This is him quoting Gauchet. Enough for to seem readily available as a political alternative. If there is a desire emerged to reconnect with it, if the support base of moralism and religious actions seem to melt away like snow in the sun, it was because the distance from the old society had suddenly become brutal and too great. End quote. A possible topic for discussion as English and British conservative really reach a similar point. And I think, yes, maybe. That may be the sad point here. Is British society too distant? Why does American service seem healthy? Because it's go look at demographics. Look at demographics. Take a map of American demographics, population density versus England. And that tells you all you need to know. You see in other words, the depopulation of the rural areas are more accelerated, and even there's only one real city, London. The other cities are marginal, and they become the deindustrialization of England. Therefore, that to the demise of those cities, they dump the migrants, they dump the foreigners, their cheap labor. So if there's new post-industrial business, it's usually service labor that can use cheap labor and therefore use the foreign labor. It therefore creates these cultures of non-integrating populations who then take over and dominate. And there's just not much left. And that the repression of what is English. You can celebrate Welchness, you can celebrate Scottishness, but you can't celebrate Englishness. That's racist. You fly the flag of the English flag, the flag of St. George. Oh, that's you're a Nazi. And even how they react compared to the Muslim morons can go knife people up. That is only these poor people. This is how they operate. But if an English yob does something, pew, 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 look at this is the response of two-tier policing, right? An English little lady says, criticizes someone who's attacking her. Well, you shouldn't have called the migrant that. The policeman saying that. This is a policeman. This is the regime is the people used to respect the police because they were seen. But if the police now become nothing more than the lackeys of the powerful, that ultimately work against the people, this is going to lead to when the revolution comes, they're going to all those cops who did this, all these women police officers and these these weak people that are joined them. They opted to keep the salary. They took their silver, like the 30 pieces of silver, to serve their to serve their Satan. Well, they'll suffer the same fate as they'll either find what is Judas's fate, to hang himself. All these guys will probably hang themselves when the thing happens, because they'll know what will happen, what their fate will be when people remember what they did. That's the danger of this. This is why you have to be careful. This is why what they're doing, what the left is doing in England, is setting forth a reaction that will be so violent and so awful. And that's the problem, is that it only takes you have to understand, revolution only doesn't happen because the masses make it. It takes an elite. It takes a elite, or a handful of elite, to then take charge of the masses and direct them. That's your Lenin, that's your Hitler, that's your Robespierre. You look at all revolutionary structures, all revolutions, like even the American revolutions, it's the founding fathers, right? And therefore it's their character, and how their character will direct the revolution towards the ends that happens. And that not only that is what we're trying to do. In other words, the American Revolution had a very limited end, independence. The French Revolution was tore over society completely. Same thing with the Russian Revolution and the Nazi Revolution. The Nazi Revolution was to overturn humanity completely, to create a new man, right? Marxist Revolution, same thing, create a new man, right? All this is, a very much a thing. American conservatism is healthier only because it's kind of a larger scale society. That's the only reason why it is. It's nothing more. As it breaks, the danger of American conservatism is it's the totalization of the federal state, and and also the limit of things. California is not working. The states are not working. These big government, all the big government, big cities are collapsing because the function of state and even government power has reached its limit. And it's promised too much, and it can't deliver what it promises. And it doesn't want to give power to the other non-governmental forces or non-forces under their control, because they will fear loss of power. In other words, this is the danger of people who seek power. You seek too much power. There's that. This is that famous law of diminishing marginal return problem with power. This is my fight. This was my famous fight with an academic agent. In his book on is it Conditions of Freedom? I forget the book name of it. His book before the elite book, his last academic book, published with the academic publisher. What is it? I don't know what is the name. It's Palmgrave. that he published. I don't have a hard copy of the book. I have only a digital copy because I reviewed it for someone. I only got the digital copy. I wish I got it there. That's one of the reasons why it kind of sucks about being a reviewer. The publishers aren't giving you European globalized publishers don't give you the free copies anymore. God, this is the what happens here? AA argued in this famous graph that power versus freedom. So therefore, you have more power. Power here leads to no freedom, right? Well, my argument is no. That I'm sorry, it's not like no freedom, high power. No freedom. Okay, no freedom. His argument is that freedom and power are inverted related. And my argument is no. It is a diminishing marginal utility curve. I'm sorry, no power is no freedom. The ability to be free requires a certain amount of power, and then at a certain power, you add like this. You need certain functions. You need certain elements of government to secure freedom. You need certain things. You need a certain amount of coercion to secure freedom and secure these things. And if you get too much of it, that's when it goes excess, and then you get negative externalities, and we start losing freedoms. And that's saying government. Government can do so much, and government. See, again, the scope of what government actually can do is finite. The problem with the liberal and the progressive is it believes it's infinite. In other words, there is division of labor only makes sense if the division is functioning. In other words, we create the government to do this. It's not that the government cannot do it. It's functionality, and certain functionalities only operate in certain types of systems, like a governmental system, a typical governmental entity, which is going to be patronage, award, or election, is not going to be necessarily something that's going to be effective. And how much say, and how much autonomy, how much, in other words, does the entity delivering the service has autonomy, or is it simply dependent upon that and it may not be able to do? And therefore, in other words, the nature of how division of labor and division of functions and the functionality of things operate. And that therefore, this is why it's more complex. This is why the AA answer about freedom, anarchy is going to be great. Anyone who thinks anarchy is going to be great doesn't understand anarchy. Hobbes is right about anarchy. Hobbes is completely right about anarchy. Anarchy is so horrible, you will want tyranny. Schmitz, this is what led Schmidt, this understanding of Hobbes led Schmidt to say Nazis are better than the communists in a sense, the anarchy of the civil war that communism will bring. But then Schmidt later said, there's some things are worse than civil war. And he was referring to what the Nazis did in the Holocaust. So this is why I had a big fight with some people about the German. If you want to read about Carl Schmitt, don't fucking go to the Wikipedia, English language Wikipedia page. It's woke. It's just it's liberal. It's just Schmitt's a Nazi. Oh, he's a man. It's go to the German page. I'm surprised German Wilkie is much better than American Wilkie. I was like, oh my God, this is actually. If you can't read the German, use an AI to translate. Don't use a good AI. It is. You'll be surprised, but the Schmitt page on Wikipedia is like awesome. I was like, oh my God, that's actually very good. Even though it does have some criticisms of Schmitt because of his Nazi connection. It's a much more nuanced and accurate understanding than the American account. The American account is just rabid and it's affected by Wolanisms. Well, that's it. I'm at my hour 15. I told you what I did. I talked about my forum article a little bit and the idea of the problem I'm confronting with society and state. I hope people are interested in things. He goes, Gayus, and he says, I'm doing my first reading of Dune by Frank Currently, I'm gonna. I want to read The Prince before my second reading because it would seem. See, my problem. I couldn't. I Okay. Let me talk about Dune. My wife is in love with Dune. She's listening to the Polish. She's on ebooks, reading ebooks, listening to the Dune series over and over and over again. I read Dune in high school, a long time ago. God, long time ago. Um, and and I even read it even before high school. I read it in junior high. When I started getting into science fiction, and not sixth grade, I read Pournelle. I preferred Jerry Pournelle, Larry Niven, Heimlein. Asimov versus, there's a big fight. Asimov versus Herbert. Foundations versus Dune. To me, they're very identical. The only difference is Dune is more about the irrational. He deals with the concept of charisma, religion, faith, things that Asimov is the complete rationalist. He is an enlightenment rationalist. He is like, he was. I joke about this. He is Asimov is a new atheist before the new atheists. Okay, Isaac Asimov is the new atheist before the new atheists. He was the first new atheist. We could argue, um, and that's the big difference. And to me, I never liked that grand vision. I didn't like the bad science in both. I didn't like the magic of one was like the science was wand waving, and it wasn't really, it was like things, certain aspects of things would travel and things weren't adequately dealt with. And with Dune, what was so hard, and the whole, it was better at the psychological religious level. That was good. It's not about that. It's not political in this regard. It it's you know it's about the dangers of power and charisma and charismatic leaders and belief. It is kind of a reaction to the Hitler and the charismatic fear of Hitler and Stalin, and trying to deal with this and religion, the role of religion and that stuff. This is why there's a story about how the publisher of Tolkien, the publisher of Dune was a big Tolkien fan, and apparently gave copies of Dune to Tolkien, and Tolkien apparently said someone else gave it to me, and I have it already, thank you, but not really interested. And the tone is like he's dismissive of it, and I think that is because of the kind of psychological aspect of religion, that how he portrays religion, that didn't really interest Tolkien is religious, but he is more interested in honor, things like that. And you don't see honor. I mean, very little. You see some in the new French and the new. Do you see honor in some characters like Duncan, Idaho, and Gurney? You see honor kind of there, but the rest, the Freeman is all about faith, prophecy, not honor. No one does honor. I mean, no one operates by honor. Everyone operates by fear in that sense, not honor. Honor. The world of Dune is a world of fear. and then therefore the role that fear and religion operates on it. In other words, that religion it is from fear and this that religion can operate in that sense. And I think that is the difference. Where if this is why I prefer something like Molten God's Eye, or heck, even Starship Trooper is great because of. I mean, if you're a radical libertarian, my teenage years was, oh yeah, we should only have the soldiers be the citizens. If you're going to be you want to be the voter, then you have to serve. I joke, and I was turned off by the 1990s movie. It was just basically turned Heimlin into a fascist. It turns Heimlin's vision of limited government, limited civic government, into a totalitarian vision. And it kind of made them all look like Nazis. And, it was silly. But again, I'm sorry, I'm gay as Wilson. I responded to your Herbert thing, and I went 15 minutes longer because of that. My wife really loved doing it. I can understand why you're doing it, but if you read Machiavelli, you don't understand. When you read Machiavelli, you look at the decisions of the key actors, all of the key actors, and you look, my God, Baron Harnakin is a complete idiot. He doesn't understand. He misunderstood fear over love, but avoid hated. Everyone, they all of them crossed the line. The Harnakins, by their viciousness, made them hated, and that they themselves, because of their inhumanity, became weak. Even this is what will undo Leto II too. Leto II will be undone by his lust for power and lust for this, and he becomes a worm, right? That the God Emperor, right? This is the danger of that, is that you become so much different, so much alien. You might become feared, but also you become hated. This is my problem with I just couldn't stand Game of Thrones. Everyone loved it. No, it violated every knowledgeable thing of what Machiavelli would teach us about how you do this. And even the dwarf, he was great. The dwarf was great, but and the eunuch, the dwarf and the eunuch is kind of a quasi Machiavelli's. But no, it was an almost case of judgment without power, and being relying on the power of others. The dwarf, and that's the danger of, that's the good lesson of this, that the dwarf is always dependent upon others. He depends on and without their help, he's impotent. So he's not the best, So even that, I go look at Dune, I see the same problem. Like, Dune is not that problem. Dune is the other. It's that. Boy, I'm blanking on the boy's name, not Leto, but Paul. Paul's is a boy alone. He only has. He has this knowledge that his mother taught him, this Bene Gesserit knowledge, and he has some skill with that. But he doesn't have. He is still. He's a prophet now. The only asset he has is charisma, and that he himself is powerless until he's powerless. He's wholly dependent upon the freeman until Gurney, in the movie at least, the Lewis version of the movie, gives him his family nukes, the family atomics, and now he becomes his own. This is that line of Machiavelli. That he's at first he's dependent on the freemen are not his. He works with them. He doesn't hire them. His own troops. His troops are destroyed. He has none of his own. The freemen aren't really his own. He uses their belief to use them to some degree. He sympathizes with them and wants to, because in other words, his enemy and their enemy are the same. Okay, so therefore there is this situation where they have a mutual interest in this regard. But once the Baron's gone, and once the revelation about the Baron is, all these things, the question is where does their interests, where do the interests of these two people at that moment lie? Good science fiction is always political. That's why you have to remember Joy Pennell was a political scientist, had his PhD in political science. All good science fiction is political, and even Claude. One of the things is, I turned off science fiction. I quit even playing Traveler. I used to play Traveler and I quit Traveler in graduate school. But I still have my Traveler stuff and my game. I PDFs now. All my pit books are gone, but I have my PDFs like this, and I kind of go and play, do something, and would like to go play, but my wife won't let me. She doesn't let me play computer games. When she sees me playing a computer game or a space game, she gets angry. What is a professor doing like this? So I would not be allowed to play a role-playing game. Trust me. My wife would divorce me or kick me out of the house, but there is something about it was Kahn's Lord who, in his footnote in his Taming the Prince, Modern Prince, pointed me to the Kim Stanley Robertson trilogy, the Mars trilogy, which is fantastic. I read it. I saw this. I think it came out early 2000s. I bought the trilogy immediately and read it, and it was like, oh, great. Now that is good science fiction. It also deals with social aspects and how the changes of technology and being a multi-planet world will alter the world. How it deals with the rise of globalism and the political effect of corporations and what corporations will do to do this, and then the still power of sovereign states and sovereign entities, and the danger of corporations in the outer space. Again, that's The Expanse. That's why The Expanse is a good series. So therefore, that's okay. I went off. I'm at almost a half hour, so I'm more than I wanted to talk about. I'll let you guys go. If you want to follow me on social media, follow me at the links are below. You can always DM me at Twitter. You want to follow me as an academic scholar and things like that, you can follow my academic social media below those. If you want to help me do what I do, you can do so through Patreon. Subscribe, start buying one of my books. Well, that's it. I wish you all a good day and a good weekend. Take care. Bye-bye. And I'll again, remember, I'm still doing I'm redoing the Aristotle's Politics series. It's been releasing every Monday through Friday, so this is even now there's the release of the current politics coming out. So take care and have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.